With the release of Dispatch and all the episodes finally now dropping, you guys already know I have to come on here and make people angry. Today I will be ranking every character in Dispatch, or at least every relevant one, so if you guys wonder where beef is, stop asking stupid questions because you already know he solos everybody on the list. Today I'm with Waterboy and Flambae, aka Skech and Godspeed.
I'm definitely Flambae.
Anywho, they both were on my streams when I was playing throughout the game, and they're here to help me determine where exactly every character is. No, I'm keeping Coupe.
Yeah, we're not creating another.
No. We're keeping Coupe.
What? What is this Mickey Mouse Clubhouse accent? We just forgive her?
Let's just get right into it and start with the Superhuman / Shroud tier. In this tier, we have people who are beyond human capabilities and have powers that allow them to fight much bigger and badder foes, such as Shrouds Enhanced Henchmen. In this tier, we have Waterboy, Royd, Invisigal, Thunderstruck, Sonar, Malovela, and Armstrong, and I'm going to be having Skech starting us off.
Waterboy is at the bottom for obvious reasons. While he's the weakest hero stat-wise on the team, he was also the original janitor of SDN. He's not even potentially a member of the Z team until the finale. That being said, he's still shown the ability to be very useful to other heroes when dispatching, being the S tier support hero. In terms of feats, he has pretty slim pickings, but he knocked out 3 guys by propelling towards them with his water, which would unironically snap me or you in half with ease. We should also know that when he's with Flambae and Punch Up on missions, they acknowledge that he's actually just weirdly overpowered and strong. That's really all he unfortunately has, aside from, I guess, him and Flambae throwing combo moves at the same time, which would mean he could probably keep up in speed with the others, as this verse doesn't really have crazy speed cliffing and everyone is pretty relative.
Now, Royd is here purely off of his performance on the red ring and restraining Invisigal. However, this is a specific scenario where she got caught by Royd, and it's not like she's fighting him under normal conditions. In a normal scenario where we've seen Invisigal carry things like bombs to combo with Golem and knives, she'd be able to kill Royd pretty easily. But it should be noted, Royd could actually get the jump on her if she isn't quick enough to take him out or if she's off guard. Now, Lightning Struck is above Invisigal because he was actually going to kill her had Robber not assisted, and due to her asthma, she'd more than likely gas out before she can beat up anyone on the tier list besides the previous 2 mentioned. And I guess maybe like Sonar in his base because he quite literally does nothing the entire game. But ahead of Thunderstruck, funnily enough, is Transformed Sonar, who was able to chomp pieces of Shroud's tech in the finale. Though this is a little impressive, unfortunately for my GOAT, he does get the worst feat out of the entire team against Shroud. And it also doesn't help either that in his base form, he has like no physical stats and he purely relies on his intelligence and charisma, which unironically, like I said, wouldn't even be able to deal with Invisigal. Next, we would have Malovela, who is weirdly just kind of weak in my opinion. Throughout my entire playthrough on Dispatch, Godspeed can attest, she was not only the most useless person on my team, but she's literally struggling with Armstrong and needs the help of Invisigal to even get the jump on him. However, there is an argument on the table for Malovela potentially being the strongest on the team. You see, with her portals, she was able to effectively close one of Shroud's arms instantly, which realistically would be higher AP than anyone on the team. And if I plugged a controller into Malovela and I was playing her like a Street Fighter character, I would be able to one-shot pretty much anyone on the list. But usually she just tries to slice and dice her opponent, which is really not all that effective. I mean, she even struggles with taking out Invisigal. And Armstrong is above Malovela because obviously Malovela needs to 2v1 Armstrong, and Invisigal only cuts his arm off because he was off guard. So realistically, in a one-on-one scenario, Armstrong would be able to beat up Malovela. However, it should be noted that Malovela and all the members on Z team are pretty weakened from helping out the city before fighting Shroud.
Next up, we have our strong superheroes, who would probably fall closer into the small building or outright building level. In this tier, we have Toxic at the bottom, then Coupe, Punch Up, and Flambae, with Prism surprisingly being the MVP of this tier. Toxic, despite losing to Mecha Man in episode 1, can withstand a majority of his attacks. However, we do see in the finale that Coupe and Punch Up not only able to damage Shroud's mech suit, but Punch Up, after hours of beating up goons and saving the city, was able to beat up Toxic. Coupe also just loses to Punch Up in their encounter in the comics, but it should be noted that Coupe can pierce Punch Up's skin, who can harm Toxic. meaning Coupe should be able to do similar things to Toxic himself. Now, Flambae is a little weird due to him technically having the worst showings in the finale, but he should be able to conventionally defeat everyone below him just due to his fire powers and range and flight, since none of the other characters below him have heat resistance. He also does insanely well against Mecha Man, even better than Toxic does. Depending on who hits who, these three placements can actually change, with either Flambae at the top or with Coupe being at the bottom. If he just blasts Coupe and Punch Up over and over again like he did to Mecha Man, these two would probably just be burnt to a crisp. But if Coupe lands her blades or Punch Up just punches Flambae in the balls, there's nothing he can really do.
Prism should be able to beat all three of these guys due to literally moving like Doctor Strange against Shroud in the finale, with her blocking a laser from him momentarily and even catching him off guard with illusions and setting up Blazer for combo moves. We actually do see Prism blocking a laser from Shroud momentarily and Shroud having to push his arm to push the laser's force against her shield. This is a better feat than literally anyone on this tier, and it doesn't help either that the moment that she actually lands an attack, they are permanently blind. Now, there is an argument on the table for Flambae technically being able to deal with Prism, because not only would he be a lot more aware of her powers compared to everyone else, because these guys are, they have a team up, but we also know that Flambae has sunglasses, which could potentially block some of Prism's attacks momentarily, allowing him to burn her to a crisp. But I think realistically in a normal fight scenario, Prism just kind of blasts them with light and they really can't do anything about it. Next up, we have the top of Z team, that being Golem and Mecha Man from episode 1 and in the flashback of episode 5. Golem not only withstands Flambae's flames much better than Mecha Man did, but specifically he does well in every fire mission you send him on. He can also shoot mud at you to slow you down or even blind you momentarily, or even use the literal ground to attack you like he did against Shroud, which is something that I really don't see anyone on the tier below countering, especially Prism, because yeah, she can shoot light, but what happens when, Golem throws a rock at her from the ground? Mecha Man in his original suit is implied to be above the Z team just off of his reputation alone. Plus, of course, his abilities being simply just too much for Golem to handle. I'll say that Golem definitely has better durability, or at the very least better heat resistance than Mecha Man, but I don't think that really matters when Mecha Man could just slice and dice him with his energy blades. Golem as well is a very big target and can't really deal with something like the nets, so he would just be restrained and would just turn into a shish kebab.
Which leads us into the next tier, that being Sonar and Coupe, amped by Shroud's tech, and Shroud himself. Sonar and Coupe amplified with Shroud's tech can press Blazer and even an upgraded Mecha Man, which would logically put him above the old Mecha Man suit. However, it should be noted that Blazer is fatigued after saving the city all day before fighting, and Robert as well hasn't fully gotten used to the suit until near the end of this fight. It's more than likely he's closer to what he showed at the beginning of the fight, where Shroud is questioning if he's even warmed up. Coupe does better than Sonar, however, against Blazer.
Now, if we're gonna be completely honest here, we're adding Shroud here purely because of the fact that he's the main villain of the game, and realistically in a normal versus scenario, you can't really scale him. We're just going off of in-universe what would happen if these characters were to fight, and I think just off of portrayal, Shroud should be above his goons. But if you think that he shouldn't even be on the list at all due to a lack of feats and him obviously getting diffed by Invisigal depending on the ending you get, then sure. However, in the next tier, we have the strongest superheroes within the Dispatch verse, that being Blonde Blazer, Phenomaman, Mecha Man V2, and Trackstar with Blonde Blazers Amulet. Now, Blonde Blazer is here not only due to being able to do the best against Shroud, but she withstands a full power blast from Shroud that was going to finish off V2 Mecha Man. Now, it should be noted that this blast was seemingly a lot more charged up compared to the one that knocked away Phenomaman, meaning Phenomaman has questionably better durability than Blazer. Now, it should be noted that throughout the entire game, Phenomaman is pretty much depressed and therefore nerfed. Meaning, for those who are going to bring up that statement that Phenomaman can absorb the sun and wipe out the planet, then yes, theoretically, a non-depressed Phenomaman and a bloodlusted one should be the strongest person in Dispatch. However, I'm going off of what's actually been shown in the series and the Phenomaman that's been fighting in the finale. And from feats and portrayal, all I can really say is he's slightly faster than Blonde Blazer given her statement, and questionably more durable than her with him having better AP. And in my opinion, I believe Mecha Man V2 does significantly better than Phenomaman and Blonde Blazer in this fight against Shroud, with his Super Spirit Bomb or his Mortal Kombat reference attack literally being the strongest thing in the verse, if I'm being honest. If anyone in this tier or below were to get hit by this attack, they would just get KO'd instantly. However, in a regular versus battle, I don't really think he can really do anything to a Trackstar that can not only use his super speed, but has Blonde Blazer's powers on top of that. and given that the difference between Mecha Man and Phenomaman and Blonde Blazer is really not all that big, I do believe with the amp that Trackstar was given, he should just simply speed blitz and overwhelm anyone on this tier. And if it weren't for him, they wouldn't be able to turn the tides against Shroud and set up Mecha Man for his final attack. Now, I do want to say that S tier is very contentious due to these characters not really being at their best. Trackstar shows off for like 5 seconds. Phenomaman is depressed the entire time and Blonde Blazer is weakened. And Mecha Man doesn't really pop off until Shroud is literally in critical condition. So if you want to say that Blazer's above Mecha Man or Phenomaman is below Blazer, whatever you want to say, honestly, I can see it. But this is what I think realistically would go down in a versus scenario given the finale.
And at the top, we have Shroud with his massive Spider Mech. This guy legit fought everyone in the entire verse, basically, and was only barely defeated by a trick from Mecha Man towards the end. Don't think that there's really anything else to say here. I mean, he can predict basically anyone's moves. Basically a similar power source to Mecha Man, so he has almost infinite stamina. He's just top 1.
All right, let's get real, guys. We know that the strongest character is actually Sonar. I'm ending the video. Goodbye.